Hey, Scott, appreciate that. I didn't know you felt that way about Cracker Barrel. Call your sponsor on that. No, it's an honor to be asked to speak here. I think a lot of this group and a lot of the members in this group, I know that this group does a lot for this community and has done for that for a long time, and so honored to be here. My name is Dixon. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 2nd, 2007. It's an important thing to have if you're going to be in AA. Also have a sponsor. It's very important. More importantly, I am sponsored. I've learned there's a big difference between the two of those things. I continue to meet with my sponsor regularly. I'm current with him about everything that's going on in my life. He knows everything that there is to know about me. I don't keep anything from him. I'm scared not to. I still have a very healthy fear of alcoholism, and I know that it's just that subtle little veer to the right or the left that can take me to a place where I don't need to be. And I'm not scared of that. I know as long as I continue doing what I've been shown to do, then I can have a great life that continues to get better. And so that's what I do. I don't quit doing what's worked for me. I have a home group. That's the Vision for You group in Fayetteville. Love to have you guys. We meet on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. It's a great group. I just like many of you, I'm sure, I look forward to going to my home group and seeing everybody in my groups. You know, its primary purpose is to help the new person. If a new person shows up, everybody knows that we're supposed to welcome them and try to get them connected and get their phone number. And it's just a cool thing to be a part of. You know, an AA group is a spiritual entity, you know, that everybody's kind of on the same page and doing that primary purpose. And when you're a part of a group like that, it's pretty powerful, and you get excited to go there every week. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's my home group, so we'd love to have you guys. So my job here tonight is to kind of give you an idea of what I used to be like in terms of alcoholism and what happened in terms of getting sober and going through the steps and finding a power greater than myself, and what I'm like today as a result of that. As was mentioned, I'm from Fayetteville originally, actually, and so some of you guys may be familiar with Fayetteville. We've got, most people know it from Fort Bragg, a lot of military folks there. If you got a lot of military folks, alcoholics kind of like the same thing as military people. We got a bunch of strip clubs there, and pawn shops, and bars. So those are good things for both of those groups. We don't have a lot of good ones. We just have a lot of them. You take what you can get in Fayetteville sometimes, and there's I joke, but there's a lot of good people in Fayetteville, and my parents were some of those people. I've got a father that's just done nothing but be a good example and role model for me in every area of life. I still want to be just like him. And my mom's done nothing but just love me. They're Christian parents. We grew up going to church every time they were open, and they set a good example, and they were good parents. And I got no excuse for having alcoholism, except that I got alcoholism. And I've got a sister that's 5 years older, brother's 5 years younger. My sister had some problems with alcohol, where she had to switch schools a few times because of it, and she just kind of moderated and figured it out. My brother, he's got more DUIs than I do, just because he's not good at drinking and driving, and I'm more experienced at it, and you just I learned pretty quick. You got to just get some outside issues and get you back up and going and focused. And he had some trouble with some stuff, and he just moderated. And that's what our literature says is that hard drinkers or problem drinkers, if a sufficiently good reason or enough consequences, they'll just moderate and kind of figure that out and grow up. And that's not my situation at all. A real alcoholic, that's not the case. It doesn't matter what the reasons are. It doesn't matter what the consequences are. It doesn't matter how much you want to or need to. You just can't. You don't have the power to do it. And so I pushed through where they were unable to. And we've got a lot of alcoholism in our family on my dad's side and my mom's side, and so they had a pretty good idea of what that was. They had a pretty good idea that I might be one from very early on. As a little child, I was excessive in everything that I did. They were limiting my chocolate milk intake at a very early age, and Fig Newtons, I really liked those, and they were. I was on a count, and I would steal them and go binge on those things, and I was just really high energy, and I would just get in trouble a lot. I was attention seeking. I was a bully in school. I was all of that stuff. Really, what was behind it was that I was just full of fear and insecurity, and not comfortable with who I was and where I was and what I was. And I mean, I can remember that from my earliest memories, that was always the case. And I would try to kind of cover up for that in a lot of different ways, but none of it really seemed to work. And I took my first drink. I would have paid more attention how old I was if I knew I was going to have to come up here and tell you. But I was in maybe fifth grade or so, however old that is, and my parents had been scaring me away from it for a while. They had all the Dare commercials out then, the Dare dog in school, and telling you all these bad things that were going to happen. I got enough reports back from my friends that stuff wasn't true, and so we had got my first drink. I tell it because it's an honest program. I wish it wasn't, but it was cream de mint. Was the first drink I took. It's actually not a liquor. It's a liqueur, which apparently you put on like ice cream. And it's this green kind of thick stuff. And I just picked out of the liquor cabinet, and that's what I drank. And it didn't really take, so we went back and got more, and we got whiskey the second time, and it took, and I chased it down with some chocolate milk, because I didn't know any better, and I got enough of both of those in me, and got sick and got in trouble, and that's about how it went, for the rest of my drinking. Is I drank too much, and I drank until I either got sick or ran out, and I got in a lot of trouble, and the only thing that changed is it got worse. My experience when I got enough of that stuff in me, if you're an alcoholic, I don't need to tell you what it is. You already know. And if you're not an alcoholic, I might as well not tell you what it is because you don't understand. And it's one of those things where that warm feeling kind of goes all the way down, and it burns going down, and then it kind of makes its way back up all the way to the top of your head, and everything gets brighter and warmer, and it was an absolute spiritual experience where attitudes, emotions, thoughts that used to govern my life were completely replaced by a new set, just like it talks about in our spiritual experience appendix. And all of that negative stuff that I felt immediately went away, and was replaced by just this euphoric feeling. And I knew right then that was it. I'm gonna do this all the time. And I did it as much as possible. They don't serve it to 12-year-olds, and so I was somewhat limited. I drank about all the liquor out of that cabinet I could, and watered that stuff down. Fortunately, my parents never drank any of it, and it was years before they realized it was all water in there. And I quickly started getting in a lot of trouble. I'm just really, really excessive with anything that I do. And there's no moderation with anything. And, within the next year, by the time I was in sixth grade, my parents had drug tests and breathalyzers at our house. I had gotten in trouble and grounded lots of different times. I would escape out the door or the window or however I could to go out and be a part of that. And my normal nature is just very introverted, very fearful and anxious around other people. And when I drink and do, I can just go anywhere. I can be with anyone. I can be who I want to be. And I did that all the time. And by the time I was 15, my parents and I were obviously not getting along real well, and they were trying to just figure out what they could do, and they sent me to this thing called Chrysalis. It's like a Christian thing where it's like a 3-day weekend or a 2-day weekend where you go to this place and you stay there, and they try to help you have this kind of spiritual Christian experience, I guess. And I don't know how they talked me into it. I think that they negotiated and said that I could get my driver's license if I go to this thing, and so I did. But what happened was that I did. I had a spiritual experience over that weekend. I went in just full of anger with my parents and fear and anxiety and all this stuff going on, and I left out of there just a completely changed person. And God became real to me. I had some mentors that came out of that kind of helped me, and I changed from using alcohol and drugs as much as possible to solve the stuff that was wrong with me inside to a relationship with God, and I did that for the next year and a half or so. Stop drinking, stop all of that stuff. And I made it until my junior year of high school, so maybe a year and a half on that path. And I ended up going to the school down in Florida, leaving Fayetteville. I was a soccer player, and I wasn't really that good at it. I'm just excessive, and I work harder than everybody, and so I did good at it. And I went down to this school down there so that I could try to play in college. And I ran into some guys like that down there. They were just like me. They were excessive with everything they did. That's why they were down there. And I don't remember how it came up, but they had gotten something to drink, and they offered it, and I took it. I guess I never really said I'm never going to drink again. I just told myself at that time, well, what's it going to hurt? And immediately just took a hard right, and I think that I thought that I could continue in that relationship with God and start drinking with these guys, doing that stuff, but it just went over the top real quick, and we started sneaking out of there every weekend and drinking every weekend, and that rolled into the summer where we got the house out on this island out there, and all the college guys would come back, and it was just all night, every night, and that rolled on into college, where I would just it quickly progressed to where by the time I was 21, so I got into this college that I wanted to get into like my whole life. My dad had gone there. I'd grown up going to all the sports games. I wanted to play soccer. It was like my life goals I'd worked my whole life for, and I wanted to go to the business school at this school, and I wanted to play on the soccer team, and I had gotten on the soccer team, worked really hard at that. I had gotten into the business school. All I had to do was just basically show up to my classes the next semester, and I turned 21 halfway through my sophomore year, and it was just I never had so I'm an alcoholic, for two reasons, and one is I have this phenomenon of craving where once I start drinking, I have really no control over the amount that I drink. I can't really see that up to that point because I had always tried to drink as much as possible. So I'm not really failing, it's not really a problem. I'm doing good, and I think I would just tell myself that. But really, intentionally, I was getting as drunk as possible. That was the goal, and I was doing well. And so when I turned 21, what happened was I started to lose the power of choice in when I drank. Because before then, I could confine it to nighttime or a weekend, and that is where I really lost all power over when I drank or how much I drank. And from then on, I started drinking from the time that I woke up until whenever. And it just quickly progressed. I would start shaking when I woke up in the morning. I would immediately start drinking. I showed up for class drunk for a little while and realized that was pretty much pointless, and just couldn't show up at all, and failed all of those classes that all I had to do was basically show up and pass. I failed out of school. I quit the soccer team. Obviously, that wasn't going to work with what I was doing. And the unmanageability that it talks about in the first step is that alcoholism works its way up as it progresses over everything that's important in my life. And all of these things that I had worked my whole life for and were goals of mine that were important to me, and family and relationships, I really wasn't talking to my family anymore because they were concerned about me and questioning me about this and that, and it just got real bad real quick, and all I did was drink all day, every day, and my parents kind of, the guys that I lived with them because I had to, because they were on the soccer team, and they didn't drink like I did, and so they were concerned about me, and they called my parents. My parents came and intervened and basically captured me and took me to their house, and I detoxed in their house over 4 or 5 days, which was not fun. And then they got me into the detox at Wilmington Treatment Center, and I was negotiating from the time that I got there. I was 21 years old. Alcohol was the only thing that had ever made me feel okay and a part of, and it worked for me. My life was not going well. I knew that. Nobody wanted to be around me. Nobody wanted to drink with me. I didn't have any friends. All I was doing is just drinking to cover up the way that I felt and all the things that I had given up. I hated the person that I was. I hated waking up every day. All I did was cause harm. The only thing worse than all of that is not drinking anymore. Because I hate being sober. That's my real problem. Drinking is not my problem. It's my solution to my problem that happens to cause a lot of problems. And when I quit drinking, I don't want to be that way. And so I'm 21 years old, and you're telling me I have to go the rest of my life basically not having any fun and just being miserable. And that was my idea of sobriety. And when people would tell me, yeah, but the 12 steps and AA and recovery and my life's great, and I knew some of those people, my case was different. You don't understand me. Like, I can never have that experience. I can never be that way. And I was different, you know. And that's really what I have. And so I went there and I compared myself to everybody, and I was different. And I did believe the first part. I guess I believed that what alcoholism was that I knew that I couldn't drink moderately. I knew that I couldn't control the amount that I drank. And I knew that I could never drink again if I wanted my life to go well at all. And so while I was in there, I admitted that I was an alcoholic, and I thought that that's what that meant. And I'm sure that they told me when I was in there that what alcoholism really is that even though that you know that's your problem and you can't drink anymore, you're going to drink again. But that sounds stupid. And and our book talks about that. It says this is the baffling feature of alcoholism, this inability to leave it alone no matter how much you want to or need to. And that's why they call it insanity. It doesn't make a bit of sense. If you know you can't do it, if you know it's going to ruin your life, why would you do it? And so when they told that to me, I just said, well, I can look around, and these people probably, might need some extra help. And, I've gone to this university and done this and accomplished this, and I'm just an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, And I just think that I'm better than everybody else, and I can do this on my own. And the truth is that there have been a lot of things in my life, whether it's school or sports or whatever else, where I can set my mind to something and excessively work harder than everybody else, and I can do it. And so why would this be any different? And this was just going to be one of those other things where I'll show you, And that's what I intend to do. I'm sure not going to go to AA if I don't have to. And our book talks about that too. You should be sure. And so I left out of there sure that I didn't need AA, and I embarked on my program of recovery, which was to go back to school and start working out again and play sports and go back to church and get a girlfriend and get a dog, and those things were helpful. And it seems like those would be enough, and I didn't go to those places, and I wouldn't look at alcohol when I went to the grocery store, and the problem is for that next period of time, I was miserable. People around me were hoping that I drank. And it just goes to show that, like, that's my real problem. Like, being sober is my real problem. And just not drinking for this period of time to show you that I can do it myself, I missed the point. And what happens for me, and what happened for me, is I got to a point where I just couldn't stand it anymore. I hated being sober. I was miserable. And really, I said, and so in our literature, there's solution, but really kind of the whole chapter of more about alcoholism, with the car salesman and the jaywalker and the accountant and the slippers guy, where my real problem centers in my mind that I cannot keep from drinking again. It's just a matter of time. That I'm going to have this mental blank spot that's either going to say one of three things. It's going to say, I probably made too big a deal of this. Maybe it'll be different this time, this way. Or it won't think anything at all. Just drink real quick before I can think about it. Or it'll say, it's probably going to be the same as it was last time. But, screw it. Let's do it anyway. So we don't have to feel the way we're feeling. And for me, it was the first that I said, I was sitting in a hotel lobby waiting for the girlfriend to get back from work. I hadn't quite started working yet. And there was a bar right across the hall. And it was about 5:30 happy hour. Everybody's having a good time, laughing and talking in there. And I just thought about how I used to have that experience. I could go in there, just like Bill, the Mayflower. Go in there and talk with people and have some adventure that night. And how I missed that. And it talks about in A Vision for You, the boy whistling in the dark. He's not happy about his sobriety. And I said, you know what? I really haven't even ever tried real hard to just have 3 or 4. How do you know you can't? Maybe you can. Maybe you could, and you could be over there with those folks having a good time, and you're going the rest of your life being miserable, and you're not even really an alcoholic. You get to the end of your life, and God's going to tell you, no, you weren't even an alcoholic. You could have drank. That'd be terrible. And I should probably be sure, And that's what our book says. You should be sure. Try some controlled drinking. Try it more than once. And so I made the decision that I was going to have 3 or 4. I don't think I put a number on it. Good alcoholic. Give you a little room. And I did. I ordered a Samuel Adams. They brought it in one of those frosty glasses with a big head with bubbles jumping off. And by the time they brought it to me, I had failed the experiment. There was drool coming out of my mouth. I was so excited. I couldn't wait. And I was thinking about the 10th one and the 20th one by the time it got there. And the truth is that I got the release before I ever drank it. It's like I've been holding my breath for the past year or so. And just ordering it and knowing I was going to get it, it was like I could just sigh this sigh of relief and breathe. And that's what alcohol does for me. So that didn't go well. It went about like every other time. My girlfriend showed up right when I started to drink it, and so I had to talk her through the whole thing, and she had to sign off on it. And so we negotiated, and she said, okay, but only if I can kind of help you limit it. Bad idea. And so I ended up having 3 that night. It's the only time I've ever had 3 in my life. I asked for 20, and I got 3. And it was really painful. and frustrating. I was very angry, but that's all I got. And I woke up the next morning. She went to work, and I was gone. And I didn't come back for a number of days. I just drank. All I did was drink. And I got in a lot of trouble from there on out. I was asked to leave the city of Charlotte. I was asked to leave that hotel. I then went down to Georgia to stay with a friend and was then asked to leave there. I drove from there, drinking the whole time, up to see my brother at App State and was asked to leave there. I went back to, you see how it's going, went back to Fayetteville and where my parents captured me again finally, and after wrecking a lot of vehicles and getting in a lot of trouble there, and I'm just drinking all day and I can't stop. And they took me up to the mountains where they thought it was a dry county so they could hold me till they could get me in treatment, and I stole their vehicle, and they took that, and I stole somebody's golf cart, and drove this golf cart accidentally off a cliff, and I flew out at some point, and I was laying there about halfway down this cliff, and God intervened. My parents had been trying to get me into treatment and tell me I need to go to treatment. I told them to leave me alone. I told them to go to Al-Anon. You know, Al-Anon people will tell you to let me keep drinking, and which is funny, but it wasn't funny to them. And I was just determined that I was just going to keep drinking. And this is just my opinion. You guys can believe whatever you want for yourselves, but I don't believe that I got here. I don't believe that I gave up. I don't believe that I drank myself to my bottom. I did help with that. But 5 minutes prior to that, I was drinking I was just going out drinking. And nothing changed except that I believe that God reached down and just helped me see myself as I was. And I've got an illness that is a spiritual malady that tells me that I don't have a problem, that everything's fine. And I believe by God's grace that He allowed me to see myself as I was and be willing to do something different. It's a night and day difference for me whether I believe that or whether I believe that I drank myself into some place and made a decision to come to AA. Because on the first one, God saved me. God got me here. I owe God my life. God delivered me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I can look back, just like we look back in the history of AA, and I can look back in my recovery and I can see all of the places where it was God and His grace. One wrong decision here, one person not being here, and I wouldn't be here. And it's real important for me to know that and to think about that on a daily basis, that everything that I have is a result of what God's given me and what He's done for me, and His grace and making things happen and keeping things from happening. And it's taken me a long time to see that. I certainly didn't believe that when I got here. I didn't believe in God, even though I had that experience when I was younger, where God was real to me. And in that moment where He allowed me to see the back, it was like I was raised up and I could look back at this place where I said, well, maybe I can have 3 or 4. And all the just destruction that happened after that. How did that go? And just the fact that I can't drink and I can't stay stopped. And that is the powerlessness of step 1. That is the hopelessness. It is a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, that I've got a mind guarantees that I'll drink again. It's just a matter of time. And I've got a body that I'm going to drink myself to death. And I've got no real way to get out of that. And so what I said was what I believe is the closest thing to the first step prayer, which is that I can't do this and I need help. That's what I said. I wasn't talking to anybody in particular. I believe that prayer just kind of came out of me. I don't take any credit for that. And I have said that prayer a number of times in my sobriety. My sponsor would later tell me that what recovery is it's just a series of deeper surrenders. It starts with alcohol. You think it's only alcohol. Right? Just keep coming back. And I've been in that same spot and said that same prayer with a lot of other things in my life as I realized that the unmanageability didn't come from alcohol. And in each one of those cases, every time that I've surrendered and hit my knees and asked God to please help me, I'm done trying to do this myself, He's been right there. He's just been waiting. He's been ready to help, and He's helped. And I can look back and see from the time I've said each one of those prayers, boom, it's right there. That's where all the power is. That's where all of it starts. And so I believe the first step that day, the first step was working in my life that day. I didn't know what the book said about it, but I believed that I was powerless over alcohol. And my life was clearly unmanageable, and I knew there was something that could help me. And I had known about AA from the last treatment center and some people that I been at that treatment center with that were still sober, and I knew that AA worked. That had never been an issue for me. It's just that I didn't think that I needed it. And so anyway, I go to another treatment center. They sent me to another treatment center. It was a good treatment center. I paid them a bunch of money to tell me to read the book and go through the 12 steps and go to AA, get a sponsor. That's priceless information though. And the reason that I'm here today, and I believe the evidence of the first step in my life was that from that point, for the next while, I did a bunch of stuff that I did not want to do, that was not comfortable. I didn't understand how it was going to help me, and I did it anyway. Because I was powerless, and I didn't know how to stay sober, and I didn't know how to live, and somebody else did. And the fact that I was relying on that shows not just the first step, but the second step. That I believe that somebody else has more power and knowledge of what I need to do to stay sober. And so I went to a halfway house that I didn't want to go to. I said, man, what kind of people are going to be at a halfway house? There's no telling. And I went to this halfway house up in the mountains in Lenoir, North Carolina. Not a whole lot going on in Lenoir. You probably don't know where that is. Probably not alone. But here's the other thing that I've learned. If you don't take much else, this is something. That in my sobriety, I can look back, and in each one of these times I've said, man, this is about as bad as it gets. This is terrible. I mean, this is a rough situation. And I'm feeling as sorry for myself as I can feel. And I look back and I say, man, you know what? That's the best thing that ever happened to me. And it just shows that I have no idea what's good or bad. And so I should probably stop wasting time trying to figure that out and just ask God what He's trying to do. So I go to this halfway house with 16 other guys, which I think is terrible. And my sponsor would tell me it's a learning experience, character building experience, and it was. I learned how to get along with lots of different types of people, and it was an experience just like everything else, man. It's like, how is setting up chairs going to help anything? Well, it does. I've learned a lot of lessons in AA from these little small things. They're principles. And it started there in the halfway house with learning how to get along with all those personalities. And I got this job at this furniture factory, which I said, hey, I've got this, I shouldn't be working here. I've got this degree from this. And I would load furniture trucks, and apparently they were pretty slow in the furniture industry, so I ended up sweeping the floors a lot because they didn't want you just sitting around. And I thought, man, this is just the worst thing ever. And I think MP3s had just recently come out at the time, and I downloaded what I didn't know what it was. It was off. I don't know where I got it from, but I downloaded the Joe and Charlotte tapes off somewhere, and I listened to those three things that took me through the book while I was working at this furniture factory. That halfway house required us to go to a meeting every night, so I really didn't enjoy before or after the meeting. That wasn't a comfortable time for me. I was just still very awkward and anxious and fearful and concerned with what other people were thinking and how I looked and am I standing wrong, and I literally, if you talk to me, I would just go blank and just have like a panic attack. And so the cool thing about AA is that you can just stand there and smoke cigarettes, and that's fine. That's like, there's lots of people that are like that. They don't say anything, and nobody cares. And they just let me kind of be as I was and come as I was, and there was no real judgment, and I was just included because I was an alcoholic. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is supposed to be, and that's what it was for me, thank God. And when I got there, and they just said, hey, we're glad you're here. Coffee inside, meetings inside, this, that. And I got in there, and this is really where the power was, is that when I got in that meeting, I could just sit there and just be there. And it's almost like that first drink, It's like I would just try to make it to the meeting that night, and when I got there and it started doing the readings, it was like I could just kind of take a deep breath, and just kind of breathe. And I was just in a safe place, And then they started talking about their drinking and being new, and they didn't say I got sober and everything's wonderful. They said it sucked being sober, Well, I don't ever want to get sober again. They said it was hard. They said it was 10 miles in the woods. This can be at least 10 miles out, And I'm glad that they told me that, because I wasn't feeling well, and I didn't feel well for quite a while. And what I heard from them was the truth was it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to do some work. You're not going to feel good. That's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. It's not just going to get better automatically because you showed up here and gave up. And they said, we got a sponsor, and we kept showing up, and we worked the steps, and we kept coming here, and eventually over time things improved. And that was enough for me, and that was the hope that Alcoholics Anonymous gave me immediately. And there weren't a lot of sponsor choices there. There was about 3, and it was the same people at the same meeting every night, which didn't matter. I couldn't remember what they said the night before, and there were only about 3 sponsor choices there, and one guy was real serious, I thought, and so I crossed him off, and he was kind of scary. He was like an ex-Marine guy, and so that's not the guy. And there was another guy, and I'm not sure what happened there, but there was a third guy. His name was Wayne. And what drew me to him, and God has given me 3 sponsors, and God has given them to me and placed them in my life, and they've given me exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. And that sponsor, what I saw in him was he was enjoying the fact that he was sober. He was happy. He would make jokes in meeting, and laugh and have a good time. But he took his sobriety seriously, and he showed up on a regular basis, and he had been there a long time, and he sponsored people, but he was having fun doing it. And so I asked that man to help me, and what he told me was, he said, I'm going to love you and until you love yourself. And he said, I'm never going to judge you. He said, that's not my job. And those were the 2 things that he did, and that was exactly what I needed. We went through the steps. I got through the 7th step with him. At the end of that, I couldn't tell you anything that we had done. I couldn't tell you what any of that meant. I couldn't even tell you what any of the steps said because my second sponsor quizzed me and I failed. And he started me back over. But what that sponsor gave me was he just unconditionally gave, which is really the essence of the 12th step. He just freely gave of himself and his time. And he didn't say, there's nothing wrong with this, but I just don't believe it would have worked for me at the time. He didn't say, I'll do this if you do this. He didn't say, you read this and then come back and then we'll do this. There weren't any conditions. There's nothing wrong with that. I do some of that stuff with people. It's just, I never would have moved forward if that was the case for me. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't let anybody close to me. And I had him at arm's reach for 6 months. I didn't trust him. And he just gave and gave and gave and gave, and he answered the phone, and I would throw up on him, and he wouldn't try to fix me, he wouldn't try to lecture me, he would just say something positive and try to keep me moving in the right direction. And he would pick me up, he would take me to meetings, he would take me to his house, he would cook food, we would go through the steps once a week. And at the end of 6 months of him doing that, I said, you know what? This guy's just trying to help me. Like, it took that long for him to break through. And it's God. It's God working through him and through Alcoholics Anonymous. And as a result of that, I was able to go through that 4th and 5th step with him and not leave anything out. And at the end of that process, I really felt like I started to have that spiritual experience. Like I opened up to someone. That was a huge deal for me. I didn't leave anything out. I did the work. I did something that was really difficult. And I really felt a part of AA and like I was going to be okay after that. And I moved to Raleigh from there. He told me I needed to find another sponsor. It was just, again, I look back, I won't go through all of it, but I mean, I had made a decision I was going to find a sponsor this day at this meeting. There were a couple guys. I wasn't real excited about either one of them, but there was a guy that showed up. He just moved there from Florida. First time ever at that meeting. First time, he hadn't been there since. Meeting happened to be on sponsorship. He happened to be the last one to share, and he shared about sponsorship and about one alcoholic helping another. And just in that time that he shared, there were a couple of things. One was just the passion that he had for Alcoholics Anonymous. At this time, I was about a year sober. I was not excited about the fact that I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. This was the last stop on the block. It's the only reason I'm here. And I'm just here trying to stay sober so I don't destroy the world. And this guy was on fire about the fact that the men that had helped him and God had put in his life was a responsibility for him to pass that on to other people, and that's where he had found purpose and in AA, and that's where he had really received everything, is when he started trying to give that away. And that's the message of AA. I mean, you guys know that. I didn't know that. It was like the first time I've ever heard that. And I kind of connected the fact that his excitement about being AA was the fact that he was helping all these guys. And I asked him to help me, and he took me outside, and he told me what he was going to do. And he said, I'm going to take you through this book so that you can take other people through the book, and that's where you're going to start receiving stuff. And he did. He showed me what it looked like to for one alcoholic helping another. He said, he gave me the quiz, I failed. He said, step one is get in the truck. We're going to a meeting. And he really took me through the steps. I mean, we went through the book and we went through the steps, and that was helpful. But me getting in the truck and going with him, he showed me how to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He showed me how to get there early. He showed me how to stay late. He would point out, you see all those guys talking with each other, with their buddies over there, and you see that new guy standing by himself? That's who we're here for. You should go talk to him. If you give him your number, he's not going to call you. You should probably get his. And he encouraged me to just give whatever I have. He said, oh, you still have a car. Great. And he had me picking up people from the healing place 3 times a week, 4 times a week, picking people up from the treatment center the other 3 times a week. And he said, you give whatever you have, and you'll receive much more in return than you can ever give. And I will tell you that immediately, I mean, night and day, as soon as I started just trying to give people a ride, talk to them on the way there and back, he said, we're starting over through the book. Just share with them whatever's been working for you thus far. Share with them whatever you've learned. Ask them how they're doing. Try to move below the surface talk and get down to what's really going on and see how you can help people just by sharing some of your experience. And I learned that not by him telling me that, but by watching him over and over and over and over. And we started going into treatment centers, and he taught me how to help people. And he taught me that through setting an example. And I started to help people. We went through the steps, and I started to sponsor other people. And I'm an alcoholic, man. If something feels good, I'm going to do a lot of it, And I caught the buzz of helping people, and it was electric. The book talks about it. This is an experience you don't want to miss. To watch the lights come on in somebody else, and them start helping other people, and a fellowship grow up about you. And I watched that happen. I was a part of that, and I started doing a lot of that, and that really helped me for a while until it didn't anymore. And it didn't anymore because I really wasn't doing anything else except admitting I was an alcoholic and helping people. I wasn't really practicing a whole lot of that myself. And I wasn't really taking any inventory of myself. And I wasn't really applying these principles in all my affairs. And I wasn't really living up to my ideal in relationships. And I wasn't really showing up to work on time and leaving on time and working while I was there. And just a lot of small stuff with a lot of gray areas that everybody else is doing, And God just convicted me and said, you know what, you can't do this anymore. And that's what happened. I hit a spiritual wall. And I could help as many people as I want to, and it didn't do anything for that. And I was just dead spiritually all of a sudden. And God brought another person in my life. I'll wrap it up. I know I'm short on time. But God brought another person in my life and another sponsor right when I needed to be there. I wouldn't have wanted for a sponsor any time before that until I was desperate and really wanted something different and was willing to do anything to have something different. And I was powerless over my life. And we went back through the steps, and he said, I don't care how many people you're helping. Let's go through the book and see if you're doing this stuff. And there was a lot of stuff I wasn't doing. And we really got down to where's my relationship with God? I don't have one. And we went back through the inventory, and we came up with some ideals. And I started trying to live up to those ideals and spend time with God in the morning and try to live differently. And immediately God met me right there. Immediately my life began to change. One of those ideals was to go about relationships differently. And I didn't get in any relationships for a little while I was trying to work on mine with God. Because no relationship was going to work until mine was right with Him. And to be honest with you, I was using them as a higher power anyway. And so that's what I did, and I formed a real relationship with God. And as soon as I did that, and as soon as I stopped looking for the next her, because I didn't need that anymore, because God was filling that hole, then God brought my wife into my life. And I mean, God, I don't have time for it. I'm already over time. But God literally brought my wife into my life. And He just wanted to make a point. This is clearly for me. I can do this. Because I didn't believe that He could. And my life just continued to get better. I've had some other things like that where I'm still trying to manage my life and force things, and it's still not complete. It's still some of my will and what I want. And I've had to be broken of that and humbled and brought to my knees again. And I've gotten to that same place. I'll just find myself in that same place on my knees, literally. It'll literally bring me to my knees where I say, God, I can't carry this anymore. I'll hit the spiritual wall. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this myself. Please help me. And immediately He's right there and He helps me. And He just pours blessings in my life as soon as I let go. I'm just hard-headed. I'm praying now for God to help me with the hard-headedness and not be brought to my knees anymore, but just to learn like maybe normal people do. but he's given me a family. We've got 2 little girls, 5 and 3, and a little boy that's 1, and there is no way that you can get to where I was, from where I was to where I am. I don't deserve any of the things that I have. I see that on a daily basis when I look at them and the wife that I have and just everything. And it just can't happen. I mean, it's just 2 completely different lives. It's 2 completely different people. It's someone that's unrecognizable from the old person, like the book talks about in the Psychic Change. And there's no explanation other than God working through Alcoholics Anonymous and the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm really, really grateful for the life it's given me, and I thank you guys for listening.